Hey everybody, it's just bodybuilding, episode 101. For the first half of this episode, we're going to go off topic, and then we're going to get into some bodybuilding and some listener questions. Hey everybody, welcome to It's Just Bodybuilding, episode 101. Of course, Dusty Hanshaw, myself, Big Ron Partlow, and our producer, Scott McNally, joining us once again. You guys seem to like having Scott on the show. He might, maybe he's like the responsible parent that keeps the two children sort of moving along. Yeah. Well, he does. He's the enforcer, right? He's got
exactly. I like that.
And that,
it was funny.
I
I had to message Scott this morning because I'm like, I literally had clients in their check-ins. Having Scott on was a great thing. I'm like,
no kidding. Wow.
Literally, like three or four. I was like, well, fuck it. I'm not going to disagree. I liked it too. It was smooth. Let's do it. So that was
one of my good buddies said, hey, it's a good idea to have Scott on because he's actually way smarter than both of you guys. Because he's done like 10,000 podcasts, and you guys need the help. So,
I don't have to prepare anything for this. I'm just like, this is where I get to kind of like take a little bit of a backseat versus normally I'm the Ron, where I have to be like,
I don't prepare for any of this either.
So look, we got to cover a couple things. First of all, are you packing heat, Scott?
Yeah.
Is it on the table?
I'm afraid we're going to get demonetized every time of course, I got the backup with me.
What's the backup? Let's just see it real quick.
I got what's that? If I go like this, I feel like that's not real. It's just a handle, right? It's just a handle.
Just a handle. It could be a prop pot. It could be a saw. It could be a blow dryer.
Exactly. Blow dryer.
Saw. Yeah,
exactly.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the backup? Just give us the quick spec. So
this is my old gun. Okay, I'm gonna leave it off just for the sake of YouTube. It's an old. I bought it at 21 years old. It's a Generation 2 Glock 23C. Meaning that actually, you know what? I can show you a part. Hold on a second here.
Oh, he's just bragging that he can take it apart real quick. Like he's so good. He's one of those guys you see in the movies that like disassembles his gun in 3 seconds.
He disassembles the gun that someone else is holding.
So the C stands for compensated. So if you look at this barrel, there's these 2 notches in it, so that when the bullet comes down, some of the charge. So it's kind of cool because when you shoot it, like fire comes out the end and fire comes out the top. But yeah, this is my first pistol. I got it at 21 years old. It's still with me today.
You became a man that day. Is that what it is?
I feel like yeah, kind of.
21, you went to the bar, you got a gun, bought your first beer, bought your first handgun,
and then just started drinking and shooting. That was the American thing to do.
Well, hey, that's American adulthood, right?
Yeah.
I was going to say, the 2 things that combine really, really well is alcohol and weapons. Guns,
yes.
Firearms.
Right. What a combo. Drinking and shooting. What could possibly go wrong? So real quick, I just have to bring it up, and I want to spend like 30 seconds, and then we'll move on. Dusty, what is your 30-second thought on Afghanistan?
Complete train wreck. Complete train wreck, and thousands of lives were lost now, in my opinion, for almost nothing. And I would like to have some of the toys that he left over there for them to have.
Yeah.
And the last thing is he has no issue arming the Taliban, but he doesn't want me to have a weapon. But other than that, we're good.
Scott, what is your 30-second breakdown?
It's heartbreaking. I heard just a couple of very specific stories. I couldn't imagine. It's honestly, I'm one of those people, I don't watch the news for that reason, because I know that I can't really do anything to change it, and it sucks so bad that it's like I can't even process it. I can't even begin to think about it. That's the way I really feel about it.
My quick breakdown is everyone's acting like they have a really strong opinion, but we all have to remember that we now know that we were all absolutely and completely lied to about what was going on over there for 20 years. And I'm not even sure if I blame any of the 4 presidents that were in charge of that war, because I think it's the elite general class and the military industrial complex that really call the shots. And I'm not even sure the president gets real information from those motherfuckers. And I know everyone is quick to blame Biden, and he should take the heat for the terrible execution. Why was everyone not evacuated during the week before they left? How hard is that? Hey, everybody, we got to go.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, get out.
Plan is the only thing you really needed to do, was have a plan.
So the absolute failure, the leaving people behind, the leaving equipment behind, I love that sound. All the leaving of everyone and everything behind is 100% falls on Biden and his administration. Absolute, complete bumbling failures. But the whole 20-year $1 trillion waste
Loss.
That's because we were consistently and chronically lied to the entire time. And it just blows my fucking mind. What could they have done with $1 trillion? Fixed what problem? Homelessness? Hunger in the United States? What can you do with $1 trillion? Medical for everybody?
$1 trillion is a large number.
I know you didn't want to talk about it a lot, but I got a quick question because I don't follow the politics much. Is there anybody? Is there another side to this? Are there people who are like, yeah, this was a really good idea?
Not really.
Well, a lot of again, I'm trying to decipher. I'm watching the bullshit from all the channels and then some YouTube people that I think are pretty knowledgeable. And I'm just trying to kind of like put together a bit, but I'm also trying not to overwatch because I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. It seems like everyone is pretty upset.
Okay.
At the execution of this. Like, I noticed the press is even turning on Biden a bit. Like, you know how the press has been very friendly to him?
Yeah.
And very like helpful to Biden. They're like standing up and going, why were people not like, why do we still have Americans there? What's going on? Like, how could this be reasonable? So the execution of it, it's looking real bad for Biden and it's hurt his approval, but he still has really high approval. And the general consensus from a lot of people, I mean, even going back to Trump, was we got to get the fuck out of there. It's pointless. So that's not necessarily the failure. It's just the way they did it. Like, I don't understand. And also, too, the allies seem very upset. Like, England has expressed that they are very upset because they suddenly had to go evacuate their embassy and get all their troops out.
Yeah.
It's almost like they got a phone call. Like, I don't know, what's the scene? Phone rings at 7 a.m. and someone goes, "Oh, we're pulling out today."
Yeah, we left yesterday.
And England's like, "Oh, fuck." I don't know how that happens, but it seemed like the world, all the allies were caught off guard. France is like rushing to get people to the airport, get them the fuck out of there. So it's like, I don't know. And then are we being lied to about why they had to leave so quick? Like, is there a reason they left all those people behind and got the fuck out that we don't know about? Like, what's going on? Who calls the shots?
Yeah, I think that's the big question mark right there. Almost hopefully we are, just so it doesn't look so ridiculous. But if not, that's the only reason that people are complaining about the 20. I don't care about the time, and really the money isn't as much of an issue. It's how many people died essentially for nothing. Because had we at least somehow given them a fighting chance to listen, I don't know shit about anything, but I feel like we just stay in our own fucking lane, but we don't. So since we like to go save the world, you should finish the job. That's my 2 cents. Like, at least give them a fighting chance to be prepared to hold forward what you started for those time, and then you're set. I mean, if they and they've been given a plan, that's on them. But for now, it's like, it does appear like someone woke up in the morning and was like, all right, let's bounce. I mean, I think I spent more time planning my move across the country. I had to organize a truck and things. I mean,
you at least let your barber know you were going. He's not sitting there on Saturday at 2 with his scissors in his hand waiting for Dusty to come. Where's Dusty?
I did let her know the week before, but still, I let her know,
So I watched, God, I want to try to get off this, but this kind of takes your point. I watched a show where they were talking to military people that had spent a lot of time over there, and they were saying, like, the Marines that I saw, well, I'm not sure if they were Marines or Army, so my apologies to these guys. But they were saying stuff like, yeah, the Afghan Army, we always knew it was hopeless because they're all on drugs 80% of the time.
Oh, wow.
And they don't remember anything, and they don't retain any information because they're super, super high on drugs. And if we drug tested the Afghan Army, they would all be out. And they smoke hash all day, and they use heroin, and they're fucked up all the time. And the second we left, they just put their guns down and quit, and it's no surprise.
Wow.
And that's what a bunch of these guys said. They're like, yeah, we had a hard time trying to train those guys, and it wasn't easy. And, you know, you can't make people really believe in a cause, right?
No, you can't.
know, it's like a job. Like if you had a job at a convenience store, right? You're like, I work Saturday at noon. It's like, oh yeah, I'm in the Army. I gotta be there at noon.
Yeah.
But they're just like, he just said that was the way it was over there. They were all on drugs all the time, and it was really hard to train them. But they had to overlook it because it was so so widespread, just part of like life there.
You can't like fire the guy because it's not the guy; it's all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you'd have no army. So that was one of the things that I found interesting, and that was several guys that were talking about that.
I wonder, imagine, it just hit me too because I'm thinking about that. If that's the way their culture is, I think about growing up in the U.S. when you have the idea of like, if I were to grow up and go to the military, what that would be like. And I can't imagine, like, it must be like a party. Like, I want to go out I want to join the Army so I can like party, you know? That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like it must be.
So, yeah, I don't know. It was interesting to hear that. I was like, oh shit. I mean, it was hopeless from the beginning because the desire to do the job isn't like really in the fabric of these guys. They're, you know, it's like they need a job, and that's a good job.
Yeah.
That's where you wish then that we would have spent 6 months there instead of 20 years. Like if that were the case, you know what I mean? It's almost like if these guys know that, then guys have known that for years.
Yeah, and like the president just emptied his accounts. And where'd he go? He went to like Tunisia. Where'd he go? No, he went somewhere.
I don't remember. I just remember seeing that he exited immediately as well. He's like,
he went somewhere in Africa with a bunch of money. He just left. Like the day they pulled out, he's fucking gone. And they're like, oh, the government just instantly collapsed and the army just instantly left. Like they didn't even last a day.
There was no fight.
No. So bizarre. We live in a bizarre world, you know? You can't fix everything, man. You can't, I don't know, this idea of policing and fixing the planet is, I don't know. It doesn't seem to work. They didn't learn in Vietnam.
I'm starting to feel like the difference between now and 20 years ago, not this case, but in general, is that the public is seeing more and more of the bullshit. Same thing we see with each other. Like people say, oh, Instagram has made people vain. I'm like, no, you can just see them easier now.
Right.
You know, I feel like that's happening with a lot of things where it's probably been shady the whole time, but the world is kind of being let in on it a little bit more and more. Yeah. You know, I mean, so that's a fascinating thing to look at. Like, you know, when I think of gangsters now, I think of Hillary Clinton, not, you know what I mean? I'm like, there ain't nothing more gangster than people making running jokes about you killing people and no one knows shit about it.
Just wearing a pantsuit right in the back of a limo, just having everyone that's a problem just disappeared. Yeah, that's gangster. Also, too, one thing is I want to be real clear when we do touch on politics on this show. I want to make sure I distance myself from the people who feel like they have all the answers. I am genuinely super interested in hearing other people's views. Like someone might have just heard what I said there where I'm like, oh, we've been lied to for 20 years. And they might think, no, that's actually not true. This is what happened. I'd love to hear their point of view. I don't like, I feel like a lot of people out there, we're watching a clip from Fox and then a clip from CNN and then a clip from MSNBC. So we get like the CIA's version. And then we're like, who's more full of shit, what sounds, what's consistent. So if all three say something, then you know it's probably true.
Yeah.
And then you like filter, and then you go to YouTube and you like watch an interview on Rogan of someone who used to work for the Defense Department, and you like take his word into like, you know, and then you Mike Baker, who used to be a CIA agent, tells a few stories, and you filter it through that. And then you turn on Breaking Points and you see the 2 Breaking Points hosts that I really like, and you kind of filter it through that. And then you just kind of go, well, it sounds like these guys are all lying to us.
Well, plus you got personal bias. I mean, that's the one thing I remember.
Yeah, but that's why I try not to say
things, because I have my own personal bias anyways. I mean, you know, I it's funny, but it's like you have to remember that. Like, I think Biden's a fucking moron. So when I see what it even appears to be a stumble, I'm like, there you go.
Right.
And I could be off base, you know what I mean? But that's just a fact. It's funny because as Americans, I'm sure it's the same way in Canada, like everyone who thought that way about Trump, it was like, you're just an idiot because you hate Trump. Then you fast forward a couple of years and I'm like, Biden's a moron in general.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, well, aren't you kind of doing the same thing? And don't get me wrong. I mean, I still think he's a moron, but I definitely know there's a bias when he reads. I was going to say speaks, but we all know he doesn't speak on his own. So you gotta factor that stuff in, because I have had people on this show come at me like they don't like what I say, and I'm like, you're allowed.
Yeah, you're
perfectly
allowed,
fine, and I'm not an expert, so do your thing, dude.
Yeah. And I don't ever want to sound like I think I know. I'm just like, this is what I saw. I just saw this program saying this. It was interesting. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, I just had to touch on it because it was just like fucking crazy to me. You know?
Scott, write down this time slot so people who don't like this shit can just skip right past it.
We always have the timestamps. Yeah, I should write them down right now. I could just like
those
save me time later.
Because I'm sure some people, it's funny, but like when I walk in, like when I go to my mother's house, they have the news playing. I'm like, turn it off. It's like as soon as I walk in, I'm like, I don't even want to see that shit.
Yeah.
So I could see people that way on the show.
So I got a few topics.
Yes.
One of the topics was all these new guys. I saw one comment that made me laugh, and it like kind of made me think. The comment was, I can't believe you don't know all these guys' names.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't believe you have to look up their names. And I thought, well, that's a good point, you know, because I remember like when I got into bodybuilding back in 1990, I remember, you know, reading the magazines cover to cover. Right. And I think that era of bodybuilder, you programmed the names into your head much better. Like you're reading articles about them, you're seeing like 10 pictures of them in the article.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know. I feel like now on Instagram, and it might just be because I'm older and I'm super busy and I run a business and blah, blah, blah. And I got a lot going on, but I just feel like I'm bombed with so many pictures of so many great bodybuilders.
Yeah.
Like it's just overwhelming. And then sometimes, like, for example, I followed this one guy, followed him, saw all his photos. He looked great. And then I saw stage photos and didn't realize he was on stage because he's got tan on and he fucking shaved his beard and yada, yada, yada. And then I looked at the names and I'm like, oh, that's that guy I follow. Like there's all these things that aren't connecting because Instagram is just kind of it's a different animal, you know? We're viewing the sport through a completely different medium that's just so jumbled and crowded and, you know, stuff like that. Like there's guys I follow and then I realize that they just won a 212 show. I'm like, oh, that guy won a 212 show. I thought he looked awesome. I just didn't realize he was going to win a 212 show and go to the Olympia this year. I was just following him because he looked great. You know? So there's just so much going on that I will admit it is a lot harder for me to like keep up. And when I see the top 5, I always stop and look at the names and I try to go like, oh, fuck, there's like 3 names here I've never seen before.
Right.
And you know what I mean? What do you guys have that sort of feeling too?
Well, back when I knew every bodybuilder and could, like, I laugh when people do the guess who this is and they do a physique that's 2009 and below. I'm like, oh, I could do this all day long.
I know.
But it's because we only went to 2 or 3 places to find out who was who. It was MD, you know, Iron Man, and Flex Magazine. So those were the channels. Now we all have our own channel. Like I'll have people ask me, hey, what, like a couple weeks ago, I had somebody say, what do you think of so-and-so's comments about bodybuilding? And I'm like, who the fuck is that? Then I go click on him. Dude's got 10 billion followers. And I'm like, oh, I've never heard of him.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's where people get confused, or you'll see for the longest, like I see guys that I see are great bodybuilders that are training with someone I know, and I never actually realize who they are. I just see them spotting because I don't follow. I think the other thing people don't realize is, and I'm trying to actually diminish the people I follow, is if I don't get a direct benefit, I don't need to see it. Like they have an impressive physique or all these things, but if I don't get a little more value than that out of it, I'm old. I don't really care.
Like a nice butt, are you saying?
Yeah,
is that you?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
If she's smoking hot and doesn't speak, I'm like, perfect. That's lovely. No, but I mean, there's just so many. I think people forget there are so many great, both bodybuilders and influencers out there that it's like, I mean, there's literally guys with 3-5 million followers that I bump into. I'm like, when did you pop up?
Yeah,
right. So no, I don't feel like I know half of the people in the top anymore at the smaller shows. It's not until the Olympia that I'm like, oh yeah, I pretty much. There's guys at the Olympia. I'm like, oh, never heard of you, but you got here. Holy shit.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just was funny to me that someone's like, I can't believe you don't know everybody's name. And I'm like, I knew everybody's name for like 25 years.
You know how old I am?
I got other stuff going on now. It's just so funny that's that you know what I mean? That's it's just so populated now.
Yeah, it was different then too, because like you would be a fan of whatever, you know, Flex Magazine, MD. They would like they put it all together, or like the Muscle Tech athletes in the early 2000s. Like you knew everybody on Muscle Tech, and you felt like even though those guys might not have seen each other all the time, you'd be like, oh, there's Dave Henry, and you know, oh, there's Jay Cutler. It's like all these guys are kind of part of that same crew. And it was there was like the branding was different. Now you could go like you said, or Dusty, you could go your whole life without finding this one guy who happens to have 10 million followers, but you just didn't happen to follow him. So in a way, I don't know, man. You know what else too? The names, because I might know somebody as like Weapon X, but I didn't know his real name was Derek Oslin, kind of thing.
So I had this happen. You guys know Martin Fitzwater?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, what an awesome bodybuilder that guy is. But I just knew his like Instagram name for a while because he was training with Branch and stuff, and I started following him. Yeah. And it's like it's like Mar Fitz. I can't remember. It's got a number in it or something. But someone said to me, they're like, oh yeah, Martin Fitzwater, like he's one of my favorite new guys. And I was like, oh, I'll have to look that guy up. Like, yeah, because I didn't realize. And then when I looked him up, I'm like, I've already been following this guy. I've liked a bunch of his photos. I think he's awesome. But it's just that Instagram thing. I had some guy come up to me the other day. There was like a bit of a little event at our gym, and he was there checking it out. And he comes up and he goes, I'm a big fan. I've been following you, on your Instagram for a while. I love this and this. And he talked to me for a while. And then I said, thanks. He goes, hey, what's your last name? He asked me my last name, but he named like 10 things that he'd seen me kind of do on Instagram over the last year. Right. He brought up the biking, and he said he watches the show, and he's like, I can't remember your last name. And I was like, Partlow. And he's like, oh, I just call you Rep 300.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just funny.
That's what's funny though, is when I got into the forums, everyone had their weird name, and I knew that marketing was my thing, and I was like, I need him to know my name. So literally from day one, I was Dusty Hanshaw, because I was like, I don't want people to meet me and go, oh, you're Black X524. I'm like,
nobody did that back then. Nobody did that back then.
I was the only one. I'm like, yeah, this seems creative. I'll just use my name.
Yeah.
I told you how I
also wasn't
mine,
saying illegal shit online, so I think that was part of the cover back then. Was there was open conversation about illegal things. I think that's half the reason that everyone had their little thing. And I'm like, if they want to find you, they're going to find you anyways. My name's Dusty. We're good to go.
I just remember Jay was Cuts 260, and Palumbo was Huge 285.
Yeah,
which was his email for 100 years.
Yeah,
also
so probably still is. Yeah,
300. Yeah, yeah, at AOL.com, right?
Yep,
Huge 285 at AOL.com.
Classics.
That's awesome. So yeah, that's funny. I just it's a lot now. Like some of these guys, like you land on a page, a guy's doing something crazy, You look, he's got 200,000 followers, and you're like, oh.
You know what, too? It's that bodybuilding moves so fast that, you know, what was like, I mean, I feel like, honestly, this is going to sound old, but I feel like 2012 was just yesterday. And if you look at like from 2012, how many generations of great pros there have been. There's been like a lot of people come and go since then, you know?
I was having this discussion the other day. Do you think bodybuilders' careers are shorter now? Right? I think they are. The average career is shorter. And there's a bunch of reasons for that, you know? And I think one of them is just the drugs at that level. You either got to have the talent or you got to do the drugs. Right. And if you don't want to do the drugs and you don't have the talent, it's over.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's just my, like, you know, cynical view of the really high level. I mean, we know who the guys with the talent are because they're there, they're healthy, they're putting in, like, I mean, look at Cutler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Dexter.
Like $1 million. Dexter. You know, like they're in it. They spend 20 years doing that level and still just like walk out like, hey guys, it was great. And so we know they had the talent, but you know, the guys that put in the 2-3 years pushing and it's getting nuts and then they're just gone.
Yeah.
And they're like, ah, fuck it. You know, the body breaks down, they start blowing stuff. It's just, you know, and also too, like the training to put that much size on, not everybody's body can take what Dusty's body can take.
Yeah.
You know, guys go, well, I got to get as thick as Dusty to even hope to stand next to him. And then they see what he's doing and they're like, Jesus, fuck, I got to find another way to do something to get my back that thick. And if their body can't handle it, injury.
It is a weird thing that and I know we've talked about this a million times, but it's always fun to me when people will watch a video and say, I don't know why you do that. You know, Phil Heath never had to do that. And I'm like, hi, I'm human. Very human.
Yeah.
He is not.
Yeah.
like, please do not compare me to that. It's insulting to him.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's all these different types I remember talking to someone about Ronnie with all the different types of genetics. Like, what is good genetics, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, good genetics could be you put muscle on easy.
Right. Sure.
But another type of good genetics is, okay, the muscle doesn't come easy, but your body's very durable.
Right.
So you could train like a madman.
I think it's the same thing with drugs, though. Like, you see people who don't take a ton, and their blood work is a mess.
Yeah.
And then I know. I mean, personally, for some clients that have come to me, and I see their numbers, and they're higher than I want them to be. And quite honestly, I keep them higher than I usually would because you can't bring them all the way back down to what I would do. And then we do their blood work, and I'm like, well, shit, you're fine. I don't know how, but you are, and you keep checking it, waiting for the wheels to fall off. And some people, that's the thing too, is there's genetics for that. Like,
yeah, and it's possible.
What can your body take?
It's possible to have the genetics to, like, you know, you got the shape, structure, body's pretty durable. It looks like everything's going good, but you got terrible genetics for tolerating any drugs at all.
Sure.
Right.
So I've seen those guys. They got great physiques. They look good. They do, like, I remember one guy I knew, he did some Prop and Anavar, one cycle. And he had so much hair loss and like his hair was just falling out of his head. Like, and then when he went off the drugs to try to stop everything from falling out, and his cholesterol went from like normal to just fucking terrible.
Right.
And he's like, I guess I can't take Anavar or Prop. And I was like, well, it was a worst.
Well, you're never going to be a good bikini competitor then.
Right. So, you know, some people can't. Well, hey, we know this. We've all partied with people, right? Some people can't handle their drugs.
Vegas eats up another one.
Vegas eats up another one. Yes. No, man. My girlfriend just got back. I was a bachelor for 16 days.
Wow, that's a long time.
She was she was in Europe with two of her best friends. They were traveling around, you know, drinking some wine on beaches and having fun. So it was just me and the dog. So it was boys' night every night.
So what did you do? Were you like, okay, now I'm going to take advantage of this and do something, you know, different? or whatever? Or like, did you stop, no, you didn't stop like doing the dishes and stuff. I'm sure you kept up on everything, didn't you?
Oh, actually,
so the question is, did you stop watching some of the shows you guys were watching together?
There we go.
Or did you leave her in the past?
No, I binged a bunch of movies that I've had on my Netflix list.
Okay.
You
know what I mean? Like I cleared up a bunch of stuff, watched a bunch of things I was trying to finish up that, I was watching by myself before. So it was good. But I actually didn't watch a ton of TV. I spent a lot of time with the dog. I got a lot of work done. It was good. I'm a very boring free man.
Well, yeah. That's me too. If everyone were to leave at this point in life, I'd be like, all right, so I'll just sit here in silence. That's amazing.
That's my life.
You just work on your laptop.
Just hear echoes in the house. You're like, this is fantastic.
So I'm looking forward to the next boys trip. Whenever I'm actually booked to leave on a plane or something, that'll be a good time.
True Nutrition has supported our programming now for a number of years, and I'm super grateful for it because they believe in us and I believe in them. I'm sure you guys have heard of Dante Trudell. We talk about him on the shows. He had a vision of offering high-quality, third-party tested supplements at a fair price. They have a ton of different protein powders, just about every type you could think of, literally thousands of flavor combinations. Hit me up if you're interested in suggestions. They offer health supplements. I use their collagen and their fish oil, and of course, they offer performance supplements. You can get bulk EAA powder or beta-alanine. You can also get finished products like the Mountain Dog Perry MD Intra Workout. If you shop with True Nutrition and you use our code THINK, you'll get some additional savings, you'll get high-quality supplements, and you will support our programming. You can also help to support the shows through Patreon. I appreciate everybody who's made a contribution. You guys are helping to keep me pumping these podcasts out. I have links to everything in the description. Check them out. Let me know what you think, and let's get back to the program.
I have a great question to start it off, and this one is basically leaned right to Ron, whether it was meant to be or not. Always felt ill after training, especially after legs. Anything wrong, or is that normal? Well, puke expert, let's do this.
Okay, so puking. So it could be one of both or a combo. So there could be something wrong, or it could be from training exertion and shock to the body and stuff. So there's a combination of things going on there. Stimulants will make nausea worse. Some of the pre-workouts now that are on the market are terrible for nausea. Sometimes I'll see guys throw up in the bathroom at the gym, and I'm like, "Oh, are you doing legs?" And they're like, "No, I'm doing arms, but that pre-workout was pretty strong." And people are doing dumb shit. They're double scooping. Yeah. They're taking like a full dose of pre-workout and a caffeine pill. Right. So there's a lot of that going on, and heavy stimulants definitely add to the nausea. So if you do train like brutal, it makes it worse. So then you're more likely to throw up. So train legs on just a little, just have a coffee and go train legs. And if you don't have the same problem, then you're overdosing. You're overdosing. Your system can't handle what you're putting in. And eating too close to a leg workout can cause that. One of the big reasons is just compression on the abdomen. When we're training shoulders or arms. I mean, I can eat like a teriyaki steak and rice meal, and like 20 minutes later be doing side laterals.
Yeah.
I'm fine. But if I eat like a steak and rice meal, I start legs like 90 minutes later. And that's just something that I learned was an important factor. So my nausea was training related for sure, because it would happen even with no stims and 90 minutes. So I know it was training related. So what I always did was I was working to minimize it. So that's why leg day, I would take less stimulant. I would eat farther from my workout. I would be more careful, even like not drinking anything but water on leg day, which I know is the opposite. Guys think, oh, leg day's so hard, I got to drink all these carbs and all these aminos. But one of my main things was water was the least disturbing to my gut. So like when I was competing, I only drank water on leg day. And so that was another part of it. Right. But the training's super hard. I mean, that can happen, and leg day is something, you know, when you push yourself and you disturb your nervous system like that. And it's like receptors in your brain that are picking up your blood chemistry and thinking you're all fucked up and purging your system and making you vomit. And that's part of nausea. That's why drunk people throw up, because their brain detects that they're poisoned and it like eject what's coming in. Right. So that's part of it. So yeah, you know, those fucking heavy ass rest pause sets on a leg press and squat into failure and all that, it comes into it. So, and some people are just pukers.
So did you puked a lot, you're saying?
I puked a lot on leg day. I estimate, I mean, I used to throw up every single leg day. So
you're kidding me.
I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times I would vomit on leg day, either after quads before I did hams or after hams, or sometimes after quads and then after hams.
Huh.
And then I told the story on here once where there was a period of time around 2000 where I started vomiting before my leg workout.
Ooh.
And I knew that at that point I had an anxiety issue on leg day that was, and then I would take my pre-workout like caffeine or whatever, and it would just be too much.
Yeah.
And this anxiety twinned with some stim, and I would just be like, oh my God, it's leg day, fuck. And then I would just throw up. And then once I started puking before my leg workout, I remember my best friend was my training partner at the time. And he was like, I think you got to relax a bit before you train. I think we got to like chill out a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
And then
So
all of a
that
sudden
was
you
interesting.
understood Jordan's music selection during training.
Right?
Yeah. It was just, you know, it was interesting. So yeah, that's my history with puking. I don't really throw up on leg day anymore, but I'm also a lot lighter, and I train light. I still train super hard, like just as hard, but the weights aren't as big, and also my cardio is better because I'm lighter and all that stuff. So, you know, maybe that's a factor.
I was gonna mention that is I think that I haven't gotten sick in years, but when I used to, it was also when I was a lot fatter. I was eating a lot more let's get calories in and a lot less let's make sure we're eating decent food. So I think that plays a pretty heavy role as well, if that's something you need to play with. Because yeah, that was when I was in that age group of like, you got to grow, so you got to eat. And I was lazy, so McDonald's was something I ate a lot of. I used to get sick all the time back then.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Like around training, you'd throw up at the gym?
After, like, or during,
After?
you know, like,
Yeah.
it'd be the only blessing I had, and I know Ron has this ability too, was when I would get nauseous. I'm somebody who could get a little nauseous, and I could literally walk outside and go, time to puke, and make it happen.
Yeah.
And then it's gone. And then
Yeah.
I'd be right back
Super
to work.
aware.
I've never
thrown up-
understood people who could, they're like, oh, I'm nauseous, and they'd like tinker around and keep trying to train. I'm like, well, go get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll go away if you just puke a couple good times. You'll be good to go.
Yeah. I've thrown up a lot in my life. Like, if you include all the training, I'd probably puked 1,000 times in my life. And I've just puked sometimes. Like, I remember one time I was just completely sober, like, and someone's like, have one shot. And I was like, okay, I'll have one shot.
Oh, God.
And I just slammed it. It was an Apple Jack. I remember it was apple sour with Jack. And I slammed an Apple Jack, and I was like, I gotta go to the bathroom. I just walked into the bathroom.
Oh, my God.
Holy fuck. That didn't taste good. That didn't sit good, you know?
Have you
Just a
had
random
Applejack since then? Was that
Oh, God,
yeah,
I would never
okay.
drink
Yeah.
another one again. I remember regretting it the second I took. I was just like, oh, I'm going to go puke.
Yeah.
I love that you said that, because that's the only thing that's ever gotten me sick in my entire life. When I was a kid, I used to drink all the time, was sour apple puckers.
Oh, God.
It was so sweet, and I got hammered off of them when I was like 16 one time. Like, just, I couldn't even imagine how many ounces I took down of that shit. But you want to talk about I don't even need to eat a green Jolly Rancher anymore. Like, I'm out.
Oh,
God.
It's over with.
It's
over with.
Memories of that taste are garbage, for sure. We're going to touch this just because it has to, because someone asked. 4-hour use GH, only training days, 5 days a week. Does that make sense?
Well, so the 5 day a week thing isn't ideal. Obviously, GH, is better if you take it every day. But I remember talking to some guys who were telling me that Dorian didn't take it every day because he thought that a higher dose, fewer days was actually more effective. And I just remember having some guys from England tell me that, I don't know how true this is, but that Dorian would rather use, 6 IUs on training days than 4 IUs every day or whatever the math was.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, oh, it's interesting. And then I remember when I worked with Chad, I remember Chad said, well, I'd rather you do like at least 4 IU. So if it's more efficient, you could take it on days you train.
Uh-huh.
And then I remember, I've done a lot of listening to some of Scott's podcasts actually. And there is one thing that skipping a few days would be great for, and that would be not causing insulin insensitivity.
Yes.
How growth hormone can make you a little bit insulin resistant. And so if you skip the odd day, you might be able to bypass that happening. But I mean, it just comes down to like, is your growth, well, first of all, is your growth hormone good?
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell you this.
Step one.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. 4 IUs 5 days a week of pharma growth is better than 8 IUs of shit growth every day. Right. So, at the end of the day, how good is it? I would say it's not ideal, but I would say that I could see justification for doing that. Is that?
I think the majority of the justification, I guess the only thing I would say is when I first got into the idea of growth, back then it was like a thing. Like people were like, but only take it 5 days a week. And it wasn't until I learned more that I understood that the only reason most people were doing that is they couldn't afford 7 days a week. So it wasn't as much of a scientific fact or this works better.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And like you said, the insulin resistance I definitely agree with, but that's more the odd day than 5 days a week. So I think that, to answer the question, yes, that's fine. But if you can afford 7 days a week, then do it. And you're going to see more. And then, of course, toss in those days or time periods. Because that's how I always did it was I was only using growth really pre-contest for the longest time because I was just like, well, you don't get that much out of it. So I didn't see the sense in spending the money when I didn't have it back in the day. I was more in the factor of like, well, I could invest that money in the off season and turn it into more money. As opposed to turning into growth hormone for the 3 pounds and a guy that's not going to get anywhere anyways on stage. So what's the point?
What do you think, Scott?
I'm man, I'll tell you what, I think that now when you're getting up to like 4 units, I think that insulin sensitivity thing could become a factor. But, I mean, outside of that, I think it sounds like a fine plan. I wouldn't go any higher, 4 units, 5 days a week. I think that sounds like plenty. And I guess I was going to kind of ask you guys a question, because a question that I get from a lot of newer guys is, somebody will have an idea in their head where they're like, oh, well, I've never run growth and I really want to get everything I can out of this next cycle. Should I add growth hormone? And they're debating on spending, maybe $1,000 or something like that on a few, good, there is decent generics out there. I hesitate to say like, generics fine because there's such a wide array of quality. But let's say he spends $1,000 on some good generics. How much, this is the question, is how much more can I expect to get out of that? So let's say that this guy is running 4 units, 5 days a week. How much better would you guys say his results are going to be versus not even touching growth hormone at all? Because sometimes this guy who's asking me is like, just had a baby, and he's like, working really hard. Should he even invest that $1,000,
Yeah. There's I had a thing that I used to say to people. If you took a guy who'd only been skiing for a year and you bought him the best skis in the world, is he going to ski any better?
Right.
Yeah.
Or is he good on a pair of $500 skis from the local store? Like, go get some good skis. Or is he going to all of a sudden ski better? And that's sort of how I feel about growth hormone. If you take a world-class skier and you put him on department store skis, he can still kick ass, but he needs the best skis that he's used, those really good skis, to be the Olympic time guy that he can be.
I like that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like for an inexperienced skier, the skis just have to be pretty good. But for the best skier, he is going to be better on his $3,000 custom made skis that this sponsor made just for him.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. That's kind of how I see growth hormone. You know,
That's good. Yeah. That's a good analogy.
Okay. Now here's a question for you.
Wait, I think we lost.
Do
Dusty.
we lose Dusty?
Yeah.
I just thought he was bored.
I thought he was like being real stoic there for a minute.
Yeah. I just like,
So yep, we lost Dusty. He'll come back. He'll call back.
what do you think?
What's
You
that?
like the ski analogy, Scott?
I like
the
that.
ski
It's
analogy?
good. Here he is.
There he is.
We thought you were deep in thought. Wait, he's still
Yeah,
frozen.
I thought you were just super.
He's still frozen.
Really thoughtful. He's still frozen.
Oh, there he is. He's back.
There he goes.
There we go.
So
I
here's one
wanted
for you
to
guys.
lower my blink count, so I froze for a minute.
I thought the paralytics were still in your system.
Holy shit! I hit him again.
So yeah, well, they did say you could handle your drugs. So, so here's a question for you. Scott, you've interviewed so many people, talked about this so many times. Dusty, obviously, you have a ton of knowledge. What are your opinions on cutting growth hormone before the contest? When? How much of a difference does it make? Do some people keep it in right to the show? What do you think?
Go ahead, Scott. You can hit it first.
Yeah, you
With the answer that covers everything, it depends.
It depends.
It depends. Because you know what? There is one guy who's going to just look completely bloated on 2 units. Here, I'm going to give you guys an example. And I'm going to incriminate myself and my friend VJ. We may or may not in 2012 or 13-ish, somewhere in there, purchased 10 kits of growth and split it because we got a deal, by getting the 10 kits. Right. So it's the same growth, right? I start taking like 3-4 units a day. VJ starts taking 2 units. At the time we were training partners, and I look more or less the same, a little fuller. And VJ starts gaining weight. I shit you not, like 2 weeks in, he was up like 25 pounds, and it was like every inch of his body was bigger, his face, everything. I looked at him in the gym and I was like, holy shit. Like he looked like expanded in every direction. And if like he looked good in the gym, like if he were to peel down, that would have been a mess because it was like 25 pounds of water, So that's a perfect example of like, imagine if VJ and I were both to compete. Would you pull VJ's growth hormone before the show? It was the craziest look ever. I was like, I didn't realize that was possible. At first I thought I was like, holy shit, you're like a genetic anomaly. Like you have such a good response. And then we realized, no, it's just a lot of fluid. It was just a lot of water.
That's funny. I remember Chad told me a story about Paul Dillett. He was like, yeah, Paul was peeled like, 290 pounds.
Yeah.
Peeled,
Huge.
but he just had like a film and some water in his ankles. You know what I mean? He'd have like, at the end of the day, he'd have like water in his ankles and some water in his quads. So like, about 10 days out, we cut his GH and, his weight would just drop right down to like 275 dry as a bone.
Wow.
Right.
And like, oh, so he's carrying 15 pounds of water from his GH. Like just like, I was like, wow, maybe his GH is way better than mine. Cause I'm just not, doesn't happen to me.
That's true.
And then there's,
it's funny you said that because I have the same thing with people. They'll mention like they're on 2 IUs of growth. Like, man, my hands keep going numb and all this. And I'm like,
yeah,
I've never had that. And I've only ever bought American growth. I'm like, shit.
right.
Why are your hands falling apart? And I don't even get numb hands when I sleep.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
nothing.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's a perfect answer, Scott. Is it really does depend, and it's all back to how long does it take them to get rid of water?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
let's say this. Let's say it's the first time you're prepping them. So you kind of have to do like a default just to be safe.
Right.
Plan. Okay, it's first time. When would you pull growth? Like a week out, 10 days out,
Week out.
3 days out?
I'd go as far as 2. I'd go as, if I were really conservative, I'd say 2, but yeah, like between 1 to 2. I'd say a week would probably be fine.
Dusty?
Yeah, I would do a week for sure.
Okay. See, I was even interested in hearing what you guys were going to say. Because a week is kind of like, that's like default, like, you should probably give that a try. You know what I mean? Unless you have the time, like, earlier in the prep, like, you know, sometimes you get a little tester, like the guy runs out of growth, and he has none for a week, and he loses 5 pounds that week.
Yeah.
And then you get some more growth, you know? You're like, oh, well, you dropped 5 pounds just by going off your growth, so we know that you got, you know, something going on. So, okay. You got some questions, Dusty?
I do. I just gave you that question. We just went so far off, you forgot that it was a question. All right. I'm going to ask this one, but it's also because I want to answer it. If testicular shrinkage didn't get cured with HCG, what is your go-to?
HCG cures testicular shrinkage?
Well, my first thing is, what's wrong with testicular shrinkage? It just gives you more room. I love that.
Yeah.
Like, sweet. There's plenty of room for other things around here. It's great.
Right. All the room for activities.
Yeah, no, that was the full
geez.
question there.
Jeez. I don't even know. Like, what would I go to? Jeez, I don't know. I remember we used to take loads of Tribulus. You know? And D-asparic acid.
Oh, yeah.
Scoops and scoops of D-asparic acid and Tribulus. That's what we used to do.
Yeah, the magic push. I think the biggest issue here is this guy's confused on HCG's job.
Yeah, I mean, it's not about making your balls bigger. It's about getting that end of the loop firing. And then you know.
Yeah, so plus, without more information, I just thought it was a funny question because if you're not going off, then it's not going to happen anyway. It's
wonder if there's
making your body actually function again.
I wonder if there's guys out there, they're like not even on juice. They just want really big balls. Like for some reason, they just want big balls. Like maybe their girlfriend's into big balls or something. So they're just taking HCG. Like they don't even train. They're just taking big shots HCG because they read somewhere on the internet that it made their balls bigger.
There was a guy in Columbus. I think he passed away now. So he was injecting something down there, and he actually trained at the downtown powerhouse.
Oh yeah,
and things into his balls.
Yeah, it was like a saline or something like that. And I knew this girl that was down there, and I was talking to her for a little while.
Like down there by his balls.
I was like,
I hope not.
She was down there while you were talking to her. Wait a minute.
No, he had like a whole
down there. She was like down there, and they were like full of saline. Yeah.
He had this whole thing going on. He was like part of some sort of a relationship with these other men, and they were like dudes that would wear like the no shirt, but like with the leather straps, you know, like, and that like one of them was like named Daddy and stuff like that. She kind of filled me in on all this. She's like, yeah, here's his website and stuff. And he did like he did photos and stuff. And I'm telling you, like I saw a picture and it was burned into my brain. But these things, I swear to God, he had to put it this way. He had it at the gym. Because this is like he got quite a package, right? And like he had to wear like certain clothes at the gym. Like they told him like, whoa, you can't just be in here in regular shorts. That he had like a fanny pack that he would wear that kind of like, you know, misplaced, like kind of hid stuff a little bit.
Wow.
Yeah. Imagine your junk so big that you need a fanny pack to keep the world from. Yeah,
so it's like those Brazilian guys that go crazy on synthol, but just with his balls.
Yeah, it was weird. It was really weird.
Now, he must have done something to his dick too, because you can't just get your balls giant, or they're just going to eat your dick up.
Yeah, I think that was injected as well.
Problem.
It might have been actually like a silicone.
Well, I look at it as like an illusion problem. Like if they were gigantic and then yours was the same, it's not good. You know?
No, it's a weird look, right?
Yeah.
You know, the balls hanging way down low.
It's tiny, but look how giant my balls are. It doesn't really help.
Yeah.
I completely forgot there was even a question. I just I forgot about that even existed.
All I can think of the whole time is it's not really a shock that people love Scott on here. We've derailed further than ever before on the second episode. We're 100 episodes deep. Scott's been here for 2 days, and we're completely on track.
Fucked everything up.
So I got a funny story about a guy injecting his dick. So I had a friend in Australia, and he was a bit of a he'd do anything, right? He was taking juice, and he's a bodybuilder, and he liked to party. He always had E-tabs. He'd always be like, I got a few E-tabs, he'd always have something. And I remember I went over to his house one time. We were just going to go eat, and I saw this package on his dresser, and it was like a preloaded syringe. Like it looked like a Sustanon Ready Jack. Do you remember those, Scott? Those old Mexican Ready Jacks?
I never did them, but I've heard lore.
Yes. So anyways, that's another story. So it was like a Ready Jack, like a high-tech syringe. You push the little thing, and it there's a little powder thing and water, and then and then you inject it. But it was a tiny little needle. I'm like, what's this? And he goes, oh, that's a Caberjact.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's you stick that in the top of your dick, right where your dick meets your body, right at the base.
I guess the base wouldn't be the worst spot.
Yeah, the base. You just inject it into the base, and it gives you a super incredible hard-on for a while. And it's called Caberjact. And it was before they'd invented Viagra.
Yeah, okay.
So it was before the pill. There was they were desperate for a drug for you can't get it up, right? So anyways, he got his hands on one, and he goes, yeah, there's this new girl I'm seeing. I'm going to take that and fuck her brains out for a whole day. And I'm like, oh, okay. Tell me how it goes. So a little while later, he's like, yeah, so I had to go to the hospital. And I'm like, what happened? And he's like, well, I took the shot, and I fucked the girl multiple times. And after about 5 hours, my dick was still rock hard, and it was starting to hurt.
Oh shit.
And it was aching, and then I couldn't sleep because it hurt so bad. So I thought I had to fuck again, so I fucked her again, and then it still didn't go down, and it was just it was starting to get really sore, and I thought,
bet.
my God.
It's been a day of sex.
Yeah, and he said it was really purple, dark.
Yeah.
And big, really bigger than a dick had ever been, and he's started to worry me. So he went to the hospital.
When your dick is so big that you get worried.
Yeah, he was worried. So the girl was like, you should go to the hospital. Something's wrong with your dick.
Yeah.
So he went to the hospital, and they gave him an injection of something to counteract it.
Yeah.
And it came down.
Whew.
And they said that he very well, if he hadn't come to the hospital, he would have burst so many blood vessels in his dick that it would have been damaged.
Holy crap.
And they are like, what did you fucking do? And he's like, well, I took this Caberjact. And he took the whole thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, we wouldn't even give an 80-year-old man the entire thing.
Wow.
You're supposed to take a little portion of it.
Huh.
And anyway, so that was his little experiment gone sideways.
The worst.
I just can't. I mean, the things that nurses and stuff have to deal with as you just roll in, you're so, as you can see.
Well, I stuck this random thing that I got, this a drug I don't have a prescription for. I stuck it in my dick.
Yeah.
I've had friends that are nurses and stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, people jamming things in holes and stuff and shouldn't go there. Normal.
Yeah.
She's like, it's almost not. We don't even blink. We're like, oh, it's a race car. Anyways, pull that out of
Yeah, G.I. Joe, fucking Nintendo controller. Who knows what they're pulling out of there?
Fascinating to me. I'm like, interesting. You just randomly decided to give that a roll, huh?
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
All right, I'm glad we completely have derailed. Our show is this is a new show.
I
not
did,
just
yeah.
bodybuilding.
I'm giving, yeah.
It's not bodybuilding. That's our new thing. It's not bodybuilding.
Yeah, I don't know if we can even release this one, but let's finish it up anyways. We'll continue.
We should just keep rolling anyways.
Well, I'm going to get hated on because I didn't automatically hate Arnold.
You know what else you didn't do? You didn't ask people to.
You don't hate anybody.
You didn't ask people to share, subscribe, and Dusty. And
ring the bell.
Thank you.
There you go.
But
there you
don't.
go.
But probably shouldn't share this one too much. But anyways, this will be our most popular episode just because we're a mess.
Yes. Okay.
No. Oh, here's a good one. Is 30 an okay age to start competition?
Yeah. I mean, any age is good enough to any age as an adult is fine to compete as long as you have your shit in order.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people who want to compete, but like you always say, Dusty, this is very expensive to do right. And not just expensive money-wise, but expensive, it's a time investment. It's a large time investment and energy investment. Even if you get the time down, like you got your 5 hours a week of training and cardio is no problem and you're busy and you got your schedule, it's an emotional investment. There's a lot of investment that you have to consider. And I see a lot of people trying to compete that don't have the ability to make those investments. And that's when it's kind of like not a good idea to be competing. You know what I mean? Like they're super broke all the time, or there's just a lot of chaos going on, or, you know, they're in the middle of something right now that's super disturbing. And it's not always a great idea. So yeah, 30's fine. 30's, it's not too old. I mean, shit. Didn't Vince Taylor start competing when he was 30?
That wouldn't shock me. But he didn't stop till he was like 85. So
yeah, he started old because he was in the Army for a long time first, I thought. Yeah.
What do you think, Scott?
I'd say go for it. I mean, I didn't start competing until later in life. I think that the key is health, right? I mean, the older you get, the more likely you are to have health issues. And eventually, if you are a competitor, you're probably going to have to hang it up because of health issues. Like, hey, I can't push the drugs the way I used to, or I blew my knee out, or, you know, whatever. There's something that will take us out. But if 30, listen, I feel like 30 is young now. And 30 is where you're just really coming into your prime. Maybe if you haven't already developed a fantastic physique, for an average genetic person, you're going to have a harder time becoming like a really big bodybuilder. You know what I mean? Like for a guy like Dusty, if Dusty never lifted and then he hit 30 and started lifting, you could probably still put on the muscle you put on. Like it would just, if you had your training techniques down, all that, you could probably still do it. But I will say for like, that's an anomaly. For an average person, it's a matter of like, okay, you love bodybuilding. Now you got to put in the next 10 years to build a really big physique. You might not have that kind of time. I don't know. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. I can't say that's an absolute, but I'm just thinking like your average 30-year-old white guy who hasn't been like super involved in sports all his life and he decides he likes this. But I don't see why not. I mean, you'd still grow muscle.
What do you guys think about training age? Because that's something I take into account with people. They'll come to me and say, hey, can I do this? And I'll say,
good point.
You haven't been training? And I'm like, well, then you're 20.
Yeah.
Because if you haven't done, I shouldn't say just training, but if you haven't broken your body down, so I think that's another factor is, think about it. I got into bodybuilding because I was already so fucked up I couldn't do what I used to do. I had shoulder surgery already. I had knee surgery already. Like I got into bodybuilding as a default because I was already broken from other things. Right. If you're fresh, I'm like, well, then in my you're young. It's like, all right, let's see.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't let the number 30 get in your way. And I do agree with you 100%, Scott. I think that 30 now is not what it was 30 years ago.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, and I'm going to prove this in time so we can see how well this statement ages. But I should be the biggest and best I've ever been by my 41st birthday because of how I've done things. Like I did essentially take 3 years and I trained my ass off, but I didn't try to grow. I wasn't eating a ton of food. I wasn't blasting drugs. So that's something that changed where usually I would tell somebody you can't do that. Like if you've been gunning your whole time, then of course at 36, 37, you're not going to suddenly get better at 40.
Yeah.
You know, you're not making any mistakes, so to speak. But yeah, I don't think the age is an issue, but I think if you're young in training years, it's going to go better. And then the only other tweak I would add, when somebody asks this question in our sport, I get nervous because I feel like everybody enters the sport and is like, day one, when I get this pro card. And I'm like, what? You know what I mean? I find our sport is the only, I could be wrong, but I mean, the only sport where people just immediately are like, all right, so when I'm going to become rich and famous and be a star on bodybuilding, I'm like, you don't even know if you like this shit.
But you know what? I bet guys at 30 are probably a little bit more, they have a little bit more realistic expectations. Like, hey, I've never been in the best shape of my life. You know I can't be Dusty, But you know what? I'm going to hit the Michigan State Championships next year. I'm going to hire me a coach. I love training, and I'm going to see what I can do. Something like that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that mentality. I love
my
the guys who want to chase something logical
Yeah.
and go for it. And hey, you might end up being a guy who actually moves on to another level. But I do love that mentality. It's like I love training and I like eating. So I have the money now. I'm 30 years old. I've set my career up so I can invest this kind of money into a hobby. I think that's the thing that I like because, I mean, Ron, when I first started, I just remember thinking like, all right, so I have $162 and I'm going to the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's all I have. You know what I mean? So it was like, how can I get this down to $42 and still have enough money to live for another week?
I still think like some of my most rewarding clients were guys that they would literally say like, hey, Ron, my wife says I can do one show and I want to kick ass. And you diet some 42-year-old guy who's got 3 kids and his wife's saying, okay, the kids are old enough now. They can, do whatever you want.
And you could be gone for a few hours. Yeah.
Yeah. And they decide to do a show and you put some guy on stage in the master's class and he's got ripped glutes and he wins a trophy and takes home the championship and the wife's all happy that it was worth it and they never compete again. And it's like 100% positive experience and everyone's great. Some of those clients have been awesome. They just got that one show. They always wanted to do it, but they were busy, Oh
yeah.
And you help them do like the one and dones, they can be really fun. And they're like, got their first place trophy. And as they're leaving, they're like, thanks, man. That was a dream.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'll never see you again.
Like, I'm not calling you again. We're done, see ya. And you're like, hey man, peace. It's great.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of those clients and it's been rewarding. Some of them are just so fun because they're in it for such a pure reason.
Yes.
They wanted to do it their whole life. They've been reading Muscle Mag for 25 years.
Yeah. And they love the process. They just want to hear from you. Like, what are we doing next?
Yeah. And they've got muscle and they, maybe he even benched 4 plates at one point when he was on some D-ball.
Yeah.
And now it's like, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of guys out there like that. They have the potential, but they chose a different path in life and they come back as a master and just want to kind of get a taste and it turns out to be a blast.
Yeah.
And I've been a lot of fun clients like that.
I got a good one here for you guys to kind of get some expand on. What concept in bodybuilding took you the longest time to understand?
I would say it was training related. What about you, Scott?
Yep. I that's what hit me. Something I learned in the last couple of years, actually.
Yeah.
What would it be?
I would say, well, it's that story I've told before about when I first saw Flex Wheeler at Gold's Venice.
Mm-hmm.
And he was training with Charles Glass. And I remember he didn't look big, and I was like a young kid. So I was expecting him to be fucking like, because Paul Dillette was there and Paul Dillette just made everyone in the gym look like a child. And, and Chris Cormier was in there. And I remember next to Paul, Chris didn't look that big. And then I remember Flex was benching. He was flat benching and he was flat benching like 2 plates and a 10, like 2 plates and a 10 pounder.
Yeah.
And he was like doing flat bench, sets at 10 or whatever. And Charles Glass was spotting him. And, Charles kind of touches the bar the whole time. Sometimes he's like doing that sort of thing. So I remember thinking like, Flex is weak.
Right.
Because I was like 20. So I was already benching 3 plates. Like I was like, oh, it's weak.
Right.
And then Flex took a sweatshirt off. And I was like, oh, nothing I say matters. And I was like, all of a sudden, Paul Dillette was not going to win that show because he was walking around the gym. It was like, oh, Paul's like inhuman. What's that even? That's not even a human. And then Flex took his sweater off, and I was like, oh, okay. And it was like, Flex doesn't have to bench 4 plates because Flex knows how to train his body, and Flex knows how his body works, and Flex is going to beat you anyways. And you don't think, you're stupid young kid. You don't know it all.
Yeah.
And just because a guy's not benching heavy doesn't mean he's not going to kick everyone's ass and be the best in the world and yada, yada, yada. And I realized there's a disconnect there, but it still took me a long time to really actually understand it. But that was like the seed being planted.
Right.
It's like, oh, there's a lot of ways to move weights, you know?
For sure.
You don't move them all just for maximum poundage all the time, every set. You know, he's in there like just doing what Charles tells him to do.
Yeah.
You know, I still think about that because I remember that moment. I was like, oh,
it'd be such a cool time to be there too, man. To see that in Golds, then to see all those guys there.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna say that's the heyday. But go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say also training related, and it harkens back to the vomiting conversation because I didn't ever really throw up. I never had a problem with that. I kind of prided myself on that when people would come and train legs with me, they would throw up, but I would not throw up. And I'd feel shot after a leg day though. And it got to the point where my leg days were like 3 hours long. Like it was these long, brutal, continual sets. And there would be like a couple things in there that were going to be like really, really hard. But then after that, it was like moving really fast, supersetting the extension with the leg curl kind of thing. And, you know, just like a lot of like volume. And it was just torturous over that, like I said, like 2.5, 3 hours. And that was after working like a manual labor job in the summertime. You know, it sucked. And I would leave and my central nervous system would be so shot. I remember I'd start feeling like I had the flu. Like I'd feel like I'd get a fever. You know, my skin was getting real clammy feeling. I wouldn't want to eat for a few hours, you know, and then the cramps would start setting in. I learned that is not the best way for me to grow muscle.
What you mean, burning 10,000 calories a day between your combined work and training and not being able to eat enough? I
Oh my God. I was eating like at one point a meal every hour, and it wasn't like, some of them were clean. It'd be like, but then I'd eat like 50 grams of maltodextrin with 50 grams of whey protein and throw some olive oil in there. That was like my in-between meal. So it'd be like solid food meal, chicken and rice, then that, then chicken and rice or beef and potatoes, and then that, and then a couple McDoubles and medium fry and a couple apple pies, and, you know, then back to the clean food and then train. It was a lot of food. But yeah, I learned that that I just needed to do a lot less, and that's evolved. And then it's just been in the last few years, I'll swear to God, it has been like training has made so much sense to me in a way. Like I was able to do it before, and I'm obviously, you know, I made progress, but I feel like I've learned lessons just now. Like I've done this for a long time and I'm still learning shit, and that makes me love bodybuilding so much, because like you know, you've done it so long, it gets old, right? Like the same thing, but it was to learn that and to see new progress, you know, in my 40s. I'm like, holy shit, I can still, there's still a rock I hadn't overturned. So getting more into the progressive overload, splitting up my workouts, doing much higher frequency, because, you know, and Scott Stevenson and I talk about that stuff all the time on Muscle Minds, is like, you know, trying to get in there, get as much as you can to activate the muscle, but then cutting it off, don't doing any more bullshit, get rid of the, you know, the junk, and then recover, and then do it again, and then recover and do it again. And I think I wasted a lot of time hobbling around, just so sore from the waist down after leg day for like 4 or 5 days straight, when I probably could have done a lot less and then done it again. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that was the biggest one for me lately.
I think another mistake that I made was, you know, coming from that era, because we didn't know better, was I equated being sore with doing things correctly.
Right.
And I will say that I still think that being sore the day after you train is a good sign, because like, let's say you train legs and the next day your quads are super sore. Like, you know, you're using them and taxing them and beating them up, and you're not just all hips and, you know, leverage and bad form. You know that it's like your quads are doing a shit ton of work because they're sore up here and they're sore down by the knee, and every inch of the tissue is a little bit sore and they hurt to flex.
Yes.
So I think that it's great feedback that you are targeting what you're trying to train. It's just like if you were to train chest one day and your triceps were sore the next day, then there's something going on.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like there's all this good stuff that comes from being sore, like confirmation that you've loaded the muscle. You know, it's obviously taxed, it's obviously stressed, but we you know, according to what I've read and seen, and Scott, I mean, you've done a bunch of podcasts about this sort of stuff, but you know, soreness isn't what was the term I liked? They're not, soreness and growth aren't married; they're cousins. You know,
it's a great one.
And you can grow without being sore, you know, and you know, and then Meadows talked all about that when the intra workout craze sort of hit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's more to it than we used to think, but we just didn't know, you know, we were just bombing the shit out of stuff. My goal at one point was to get as sore as I can in the least amount of sets, which I sort of saw as like an efficiency test. Like if I can do one set of Smith squats, one set of hack squats, one set of leg extensions, and have crippled quads the next day, I know how to train. That's what I used to think, right?
Yeah.
So I'd like literally do one working set of hacks, one working set of press, one working set of extensions, like full on Dorian.
How long did that take, that workout?
45 minutes.
Yeah.
And then the next day my quads would be crippled sore for like 3 days. So I'd be like, oh, I'm more efficient. I know how to train. But it's not really actually like, you know, it's definitely a sign that you're targeting things and going hard, but that shouldn't be your goal. Like your goal shouldn't be to be sore.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, your goal should be to grow and recover.
Yeah.
You know,
it's such a hard thing though, because I mean, I know you guys have already covered it, but I always find it amazing that even to this day, when I'm healthy, like now, if I'm really sore after a workout, I still say to myself, must have been a good day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
Or you look back and you're like, well, then what the fuck was I doing for the last 3 weeks when I wasn't sore at all? And you know better, but it still enters your mind every time, because there is something to be said about, you know, when you wake up in the morning and you move, and you're like, oh, shit, okay, I forgot we did that yesterday.
Yeah.
Especially when it's a hard area, like your inner traps. Or your lower lats, or like some area that's hard to like really target, you know. And you always have those back workouts where you get that one spot in your back that you normally don't feel, and it's like sore. You're like, oh fuck, that was good. What did I do? Oh, is that, you know, that new machine I tried or whatever? So
that one thing,
yeah.
No,
You know,
I definitely
constantly
get
on the
that.
hunt.
What about you, Dusty?
It's good that people do that. I mean, for me, it's a lot of the same. The only thing for me individually that I learned, that I thought that I've learned and shared a ton, is what intensity is. Like, I've always trained like a lunatic, but what that meant has really amped up, and also what it means for the whole workout now. Like, I think people would be stunned, and I know I joke about it all the time, but I'm like the anti-hardcore now. In between sets, like I'll get done with a working set, I'll do my next warm-ups on the next machine, and then I'll edit down a video that I just filmed 2 seconds ago to fit Instagram for after I'm done. So I'm on my phone. Like everyone's like, oh, you can't be on your phone. I'm like, fix that, done, boom. But then when I touch the bar, it's like a light switch every time. Like I can be joking with you and like literally laugh and then walk away from you for 10 seconds and then pull 800. Like, okay, let's go. Like it's just... And that's something when I was a kid I could not do. I was in the gym and it was like, it's time to train. And I had music I had to listen to on the way to the gym. And my whole 2.5 hours before I left the house all the way to the end of that workout were like so high amped up. And now it doesn't, I don't require any of that. Like, it's like when I walk into the gym, it's time to work. That's it.
So that's exactly where I like started puking before my leg day, you know? Like I'd have the Pantera cranked at the house.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, fucking hostile, you know? And I'd be walking around, getting my fucking leg day shirt on and fucking get
hell yeah.
And I'd throw up. And I'm like, fuck. And it was funny because that kind of came last year. You know, my training partner, Braden, you know, he's doing his first show in a few weeks here. So he's been, you know, the last pretty much 2 years has all been sort of like trying to get enough muscle where he's going to be happy on stage. So it's been a real like progressive overload, you know. He started training with me doing like 4 plates on the hack, and now he's doing 7 plates for 10.
Hell yeah.
And the legs are way bigger and he's ready to compete, you know. So like the progression has been insane, because I remember I was 2 plating him on all the leg stuff, and now he's 1 plating me.
Right.
So he's come up 3 plates, right? But that was done just by methodically plugging away at the key exercises, hack squats, every second leg workout, not every, it was every second leg workout. We do hack squats, and that's where the numbers get tested. And that was just like the last year straight, at least. But I remember there was a point where I was getting super anxious for those hack squat days too, because, you know, I always want to be the, you know, I always said, when I can't be useful as a training partner to an actual bodybuilder, I'm not going to train with him anymore. Right. And because I would never put up with that as a bodybuilder. Like, you know, you had to be useful to me. Either you were an incredible spotter and you were there as a support crew, or you were also trying to get massive. There was one of the two reasons why you were a training partner of mine. Right. And so I'm like, well, Braden's, you know, trying to chalk up new numbers every time. So let's get my hack squat back up. I'll push a little bit, you know, see how much I can do on the HRT plus, you know? And we both started getting like hack squat day was like, you know, and after hacks would be over with, the rest of the leg workout was like, it was like mentally we were both completely shot. And it was just a crazy drag to get through the rest of the workout. And finally, we had a conversation one day. He's like, I think I get too amped up.
Yeah.
Like, I have to bring it down because I can't make it. Like, I'm blowing all my energy on the hacks, and not just good energy, but like all my energy. Like, I don't have any mental energy left to even do the rest of the workout. And I'm like, yeah, I recognize that too. That's happening for the first time since I used to compete. Right. So we dialed it down, like try to just not be so fucking, you know, ready to twist the head off a small child on hack squat day, you know, and just kind of like, you know, even just purposeful stuff, like just, you know, trying to like put a smile on my face and, you know, like, hey man, let's have a good set, you know, like just a little bit of a shift in attitude to preserve energy.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, you're like, you think of like something that leaks energy in all directions, you know, like an inefficient.
You'd much rather be able to blast into one area.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
What it is you got to remember too, as you get more experience. I think what I learned, and I equate it back to when I played hockey. I had a really hardcore coach at one point, and his thing was celebrations after goals. He would always say, "Act like you've done it before." Like, why are you freaking out? And if you're a 50 goal scorer, it's like, yeah, I scored again. And that was how I started to approach even like a hack squat. Like, I didn't have to get amped up to stack the fucking thing and put extra weight on top of it, because this is just like, I would literally, and it's funny, but I would just say that to myself before sets. I'd be like, do what you do. Like, this is just what you do. I don't know why you can do this, but it doesn't require a bunch of extra thought other than that couple seconds before you get under the bar, you know? And I think that was something I learned, where now I think if someone were to watch an entire workout, they'd be like, that's it. But if they caught when the bar was moving and when it mattered, it's like, well, that's why he needs 4 sets.
Right.
You know,
you're going to love, like, I've got something I say to myself now.
What's that?
Before a set.
I think I know what this is. Let's hear it.
What is it?
So like, I've been saying it to myself, like in my head, and sometimes I even say it out loud, but it's like, just to remind myself, cause you know, I'm still trying to challenge myself in the gym, and I know my poundages are down, but I still want to challenge, you know?
Okay. Maybe I don't know it.
And so I'll say to myself, like right before the set, I'm like, okay, high school weights. These are high school weights.
Yeah.
These are grade 12 weights. These are 110-pound dumbbells. There's no reason I can't just fucking crush these, or, you know, this is only 3 plates on a bar. Like, this is 4 plates on a machine. This is high school weights. And just say that to myself. And, you know, just a little kick in the ass.
I like that. You know what I thought you were going to say? You told me this. You said this in an interview or something a while ago. Maybe you said it on the show. You used to say robot reps.
Oh, yeah, I still say that. Yeah,
you
that's
do?
Something that I really say in my head. And I say it to people when I'm training with them. Like, that's what I was talking about last week, where I hate where people wiggle around.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they wiggle around, and the bar path is different on 3 different reps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've thought about that. I've kept that in my head training
machine.
sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Just lock in. Everything should be locked in, super stable, you know? And also too, like, if your body's moving around, your body is the anchor for what you're moving, right?
Yeah.
wiggling around and your base isn't solid and all that stuff. You're leaking power everywhere, like an inefficient term, leaking power. You hear a kinesiologist or a movement specialist talk about like energy leaking. They'll talk about like someone jumping, but their feet aren't in the right spot, so they're leaking energy out the sides and not all of it's going up. So I think about that when you're moving weights too. Like, are you leaking energy out of your transfer? It's just that it makes me think about efficiency and like who wants to lose power?
Yeah.
It's just like when you see someone doing
some position to have max.
yeah, you know what I mean? It's like when you see people doing cable crossovers, but then they move backward.
Right. Yeah,
like,
it's supposed to be going that way.
yeah. You're firing a cannon out of a canoe. It doesn't fucking work.
Yeah.
So
it's true. We used to call it, or JJ Marsh used to always say, reps were supposed to look like a piston. Like they should all look the same. The reps should be the same. Everything is the same. And it's true. Like it's funny because when you watch I like watching like Tommy evolve, and obviously Scott, you know him well. Like when we first started, I used to have to correct all the time. I'm like, slow down, do this, and now he'll post Instagram videos, and I'm like, flawless.
Yeah,
everything is just like, you know what I mean. You're like, you can see it's ingrained now. The speed is the same on every rep. The body is, even when he struggles, the body never moves. He's just running out of gas. You know what I mean? But that's the stuff that the only thing that will teach you is time and some athleticism. Some people I've had to shake my head. I'm like, man, I've been teaching this for 10 fucking years. You still can't do it? Good shit.
Yes. Any more, Dusty? You got time for one more?
Wow, I got all the time in the world. I already trained, kids. Let's see here. I want to get one more solid because I like these rounds here.
These were good. You got some good ones.
Let's see. Oh, here we go. Oh, this is actually a good one. How would you program a time-restricted and balanced pull day in terms of exercise selection? I didn't say how much time, but if it's
so you time restricted,
of the essence. Yeah.
So you're training back and biceps is what he means when he says pull day, or is he also putting okay.
Sometimes when people like I put like my RDLs would be on a pull day too.
Right. Okay. Well, I keep everything basic. So I would think, what does your back need to be completely trained? It needs an overhead pull down movement with your elbows by your sides. So like a medium grip, shoulder width hammer grip. I think this is like the best grip for pull downs, like a shoulder width neutral grip.
Right.
So some sort of pull down like that where you can really dig into the lats. And then you need some sort of rowing movement where you can dig into the lats. If we're just going to keep it basic as fuck. So an elbow by your side row. And then you need an elbow out row to hit your upper back. Technically, you got to do something like lying T-bar with the elbows out, something like that. And then, a hinge movement, some kind of hinge movement for erectors and lower back and all that stuff if you're going to put that on your pull day. And then you need if you're really time restricted, you could get by on one bicep movement if you just changed it up from pull day to pull day. Maybe a preacher curl one day, a standing curl one day, a high curl the other day. You could vary your focus on the bicep, but the bicep's pretty simple to train. And, so you'd have a narrow, like a neutral grip pull down, a neutral grip row with your elbows by your sides, or like that could be one arm dumbbell rows too. Could be something heavy, and you could do a T-bar row. Something obviously heavy and unsupported would be more efficient because you're more taxing more muscle as opposed to doing supported movements. And then I do a high row and some kind of hinge. That would kind of cover your bases. That's just how I think. I just think in simple terms. Where do the elbows have to move? What do you think,
What would you add to that, Scott?
I like that. I would kind of do pretty much the same thing. I guess it depends on how frequently you were going to hit back. Because you know what I mean? Okay. Maybe if I was going to do it again later, maybe like the the stuff I do for like the low back, you know, like stuff I do for like a deadlift or whatever, that might be on one day, and then another day I do something else. But outside of that, to put it all together in one workout, I think you covered it, you know?
Yeah, I was just sort of thinking like if you had to hit the whole back in one workout, you kind of you can break it down to 4 movements if you have to.
Yeah, I know.
I think the only tweak I would add to that is if you are real strong, what I try to do in positioning my workouts is knowing that, for example, if I'm doing deadlifts, that's time consuming. To get up to 7-8 plates on a pull takes a while. So I make sure that I plan the rest of my workout that can be a little quicker. You know, that's when it's like, okay, I'm going to do hammer strength for the next movement because, you know, I can jump right to 3 plates because I'm already very warm, move it around, and my next set can be my top set.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. I'm not doing that type of training right now, but we were just doing hams the other day, and working up on my RDLs took a while. And then after that, the rest of the workout was like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You know,
I just had a client who said the workouts were just a little too long for him because he's really got a tight schedule, right, with his kids and stuff. And he's like, I really need to shave like 20 minutes. And I was like, oh. So I just looked at the program and I just removed exercises and put those sets on other exercises. So he's changing machines less often. Right? So instead of doing 5 exercises, 3 sets each, he's doing 3 exercises, like 4 sets each.
Yeah.
Right. He's only got a slight drop in volume, but he's only moving exercises twice. He only has 3 exercises. Right. So he can bang out the sets like a lot faster. And he's like, all of a sudden, he's like, oh my God, that was perfect. I'm out of the gym now in like 50 minutes.
Nice.
Right.
So, you know, he's still got almost the same volume, but just fewer movements. So then you just have to kind of like, you know, next chest day, you do that movement instead and, you know, get your variety in, right? So, yeah, so that works too, you know. Moving, like doing, you know, you see some guys train, like they'll do 8 back exercises, but they're doing 1 or 2 sets each.
Yeah.
Right? Which kind of, you know, but that still eats up a lot of time.
Sure.
Because you're like.
Yeah, just move it around. Yeah.
Yeah. You know. So there's a little bit of the wiggle room there if you need to.
Yeah, I do that. Like, and Ron, you know, we've done this before. When you're doing the expos, there's so many people at the gym. We'll grab a Smith and kind of look at each other and be like, "How many things can we do on this without moving?"
Exactly. Did I told you about that day I trained arms with Ben, and we literally stood at the same pulley for 45 minutes. Did an entire arm workout. Same. We had a high pulley and a low pulley.
Nice.
And that was it. And the gym had like 100 people in it.
Yeah.
That McFit in Germany.
Yeah, the smallest gym you've ever seen.
Yeah, just fucking terrible. And I remember Cedric was curling in the squat rack. And he was joking about it. He's like, y'all over there, I'm over here curling in the squat rack. Like he was like being funny about it, right?
Yeah.
But he just stood in the squat rack and did like 20 sets of barbell curls because the gym was fucking crazy. Yeah. That was it. That was bicep workout. He's like, wide grip, narrow grip, touch my forehead. Do drag curls. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's definitely the I mean, sometimes though, when time is of the essence, it is a thing. And I think as much as we want to bounce around and move, you can keep in mind that can be on separate workouts. Like you said, I mean, you can go in. I've joked sometimes when you get on a machine and it just feels good. I'm like, well, maybe I'll just do 10 of these today.
Yeah.
And fucking leave.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
You know, I mean, when I first started training, that was one of the workouts that my first coach gave me was 10 sets of 10 on squats. But that was your working set. So it was supposed to be with 405. And he was like, and you have 30 minutes from the first time you do 405 to do the other 9 sets. It's like, all right. Well, trust me, you're done after that. You don't need anything else. You can go home.
Yeah. That's one of the things I'd say as far as being a bodybuilder. You know, one thing I can say is that traveling around to all those expos and being on the road that much, and having to learn all those little mini lessons that you do, you know, like, it works. You know, just the timing of everything too, like the whole process. Like, okay, you're done the expo at 5, and then you're gonna do this, and then you're gonna do that, and then you're gonna be at the gym by 7:30, and you know, like. Having to do all that in all those different cities with all those just different factors and the food and everything's a hassle. It really helps you be a better bodybuilder in the sense that you see what actually matters. and what really like checking the boxes is very important. Like not every workout has to be fucking world stopping. Like you have to just make sure you check those boxes. Like get in there, get your train, and not letting stuff bother me. You know, like you get up and go do chest at 6 a.m. at some shitty gym, and you're like, you can't track your poundages or worry about like how strong you're going to be. You just have to get in there and train.
Yeah.
And you look around and you see Branch and Johnny doing arms at 6 a.m. and fucking this guy doing this at 6 a.m. and this guy's over there training legs at 6 a.m. And you're like, the pro bodybuilder life is just you get in there, check that box, you know, move weights, get out of the gym, get your meal. Like it's not always a perfect, you know, dream. Oh, it's my important workout. It's like, fuck, dude, you just got to train. You got 45 minutes. Hurry up.
It's funny that you say that because, and this is it was funny, it was a lesson, but when I first signed with Condemned and I went down and did my first training video series with them, we're heading to the gym and they're like, yeah, well, we hope you like everything at the gym because Jonathan didn't like, some of the equipment didn't agree with him. And he trains at arm breast. So he has the best of every possible thing.
Yeah.
And I go, it'll be fine. And they're like, you don't know what's there. I'm like, is there gravity? I'm good to go.
Yeah.
Like when you've been doing this for as long as we have, you just realize that. And in 6 or 7 years, because he's a great bodybuilder, he will not need arm breast gym to have a great workout. He needs gravity, you know?
Right.
And I think you do. You just, because that's how I was. I used to be comfortable in like, I trained this gym on this body part. I trained that gym because I was spoiled, you know?
Right.
And then once you get to the point, you realize the big eye opener for me, Ron, was when I went into Temple. I remember that was the first thought I had. I looked at the entire gym and I was like, this is where he built that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
Shit. You know, and same thing with, and I know there's different schools of thought on it, but I love like when we talked to John and he was like, you know, he loves to change stuff. And Dorian was like, I did that routine for a decade.
Yeah.
That back workout.
Yeah.
Every time. Yeah. And it's like, I love that kind of stuff because you do really realize that. And once you have that tool in your toolbox, it's beautiful because I'm like, I need a gym.
Yeah.
I'll be fine. It'll work. It might not be the best, but it'll work.
What's the poshest, most up class, like joint you ever trained at where people were just like, what are you doing here? Like,
oh man, that would be, well, there's a Lifetime Fitness, but there's different levels, and the highest one is like an Onyx or something like that, and I deadlifted in there one day. it was that day, and I'm like, well, this is gonna happen here, huh?
Were they okay with it?
You know, well, I mean, in fairness, it was in my hometown, so everybody knew me, so
it
wasn't a shocker. But I think to members, it was different.
Oh, a little bit.
You know,
yeah.
You know, because I'm also not silent, believe it or not. So
there's
a lot of noise between me and the bar. It's one of those things where you get done and you kind of turn, you're like,
yeah.
My bad.
What about you, Scott? Where's like the poshest place you ever trained?
Man, you were asking that, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't think I've ever gone to a really posh gym. Like, I was thinking Lifetime as well, and that would be probably there was one in Columbus where I stayed at this, it was like a little condo place, and it was for the Arnold. I've stayed there a couple times, actually. Nice little setup, and the nice thing is it's like, you just right by the freeway, and then 15 minutes you're downtown with everything. But then you get in your car and you drive, because I drive down there from Detroit, so I've got my car and everything. And then you get out there, and then it's like you're away from everything. You get, you drive that 10 minutes away, and there's like a Whole Foods, and there's no lines. There's anything you need is nice. And they have this deal where if you stayed at this place, you could go to the Lifetime Fitness that was down the road. And so I've trained there a couple times, and I was picturing Dusty deadlifting there. But I haven't been to, like, I've never gone to, like, not that either that or like they don't stick out to me if I have. Right. I'm trying to think, like, I know I've been to a few places where, you get the towels and there's all sorts of fancy amenities, but I think more like the gyms that I like are like the first time I met Dusty, you introduced him to me, and that was in Las Vegas. and it wasn't like the best gym ever, but it was that place. I think it would be like.
Was it an LVAC?
No. It was a little bit outside of town, and they had a sign on the front that said "Hardcore Gym." Like right on the it didn't even have the name of the lift factory. Was that it? Maybe
Lift factory.
Yeah. So that's not like the best, most hardcore gym in the world. But I love finding, like, traveling and finding places like that, and then running into you guys. You know, that of course has made it really cool. But
yeah, that was cool.
Yeah,
I went to Chile for an appearance with Mutant once. And the distributor there was like the nicest guy, and he drove us around, and he had this like really sweet car, and took us to these nice steak houses, and it was really good. Like, they took great care of us. And this one day he wanted to show us like the most beautiful site. He's like, "You got to come. I'll take you show this site." It's like, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then he's like, "And I'll make sure Ron has a gym to train at." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I bring my stuff, and we're off we go. And he drives us up into the mountains to this incredible, like, you can tell it's for like the rich people.
Yeah.
It's a golf, like a country club. And this place was just absolutely gorgeous. It looked like something out of a Bond movie. Like, you got to drive up the windy mountain road, and there's this incredible view. And then you get to the top, and all of a sudden this big country club is right there in the mountain. It's crazy. And we go down there, and there's all, it's like real posh like golf course, that all the cars are fucking, G-Wagons and Ferraris and everything there. It's just, it's a country club. And he takes us in, and we have this nice lunch, it's real fancy, and we do a little tour of the place. And then he's like, "Okay, well, Ron, you want to use a gym?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Let's see how this gym is." And it was like the shiniest, cleanest. It was like, rich golf moms and their kids all working out, and it was all techno gym. It was all brand new techno gym. And I'm like, "Well, I'm doing shoulders today, so let's see." And the dumbbells went to 50, so I did a whole bunch of side laterals. I like ran the rack, and then grabbed a techno gym press machine and did like a whole bunch of drop sets on it. Just the delts were just blown up. I think I was still 300 when I went down there, so it was like walking around that place. And it was super hot because they had like the whole front was open, so it was just like summertime, right?
Yeah.
And super hot, so I was like soaking, dripping all over everything, just disgusting. And then the guy came over, he's like, "Do you want another towel?" Because I guess one towel wasn't enough for me because I looked pretty sweaty.
They offered you a beach towel.
Yeah.
"I'll give you another towel." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I was like laying towels on all the equipment. It was just funny. But that was like that was the fanciest place I ever trained, and like I was like, people were looking at me like an alien.
I bet
it was like funny. Yeah, it was pretty. And then like little kids like had no clue who I was. Like they have nothing. They just wanted to put a photo with me. Like,
no kidding.
Mom's coming over like, "Can you get a photo with you?" I'm okay. Like, it's not like they know anything about Mutant or bodybuilding or anything. They just saw some freak at the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
Still fall to that.
Yeah, I'm lucky it wasn't leg day because I couldn't, like, you try to think you can train anywhere, but if it was leg day, I probably would have just aborted. I don't think they had anything.
Yeah, you just went to what you were going to do the next day. We'll leave that for tomorrow.
Yeah. So how's that, guys? Is that episode 101?
It is.
We went about 2 hours. Scott, you kept us safe, packing heat. It's nice to have armed security
always here
at all times.
Always here if you need me.
So let's. So if you made it this far in the episode,
you like us, probably.
But go ahead.
Yeah, well, you like
Thanks,
us.
Mom.
We apologize for the entire first hour. Let's hope Arnold doesn't say anything else. It's just so stupid.
Yeah.
And let's hope no more of our favorite people say really stupid shit. People have to start thinking more. God, blows me away. Okay, we happy, gentlemen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks, Dusty. Thanks, Scott. Remember, everybody, like, share, subscribe.
Ring the bell.
Dusty says, there you go. It's just bodybuilding.